Sentenced
The drowning.
to the cursed lake.
Have you ever felt water fill your lungs? I have.
Damien, please!
Have you
don't
ever
let
known
them...
the exact moment your
Why
pack
won't you
decided
help
you
me?
were better off dead? I have. Have you ever heard the moon goddess whisper in the darkness, telling you that drowning isn't the end? It's the beginning? I have. My name is Maya Thornwood. I was 19 years old when my pack felt drowning in the cursed lake. The kind that burned
Sentenced
shifter skin and threw me in
to the
like garbage
cursed
they needed to
lake.
dispose of. The Alpha gave the order. The Luna smiled
Damien,
as I
please!
sank,
Don't let them...
and my fated mate,
Why
the
won't
one
you
the bond
help
had
me?
chosen for me just weeks before, stood silent on the shore and watched me die. They called me defective because I didn't shift on my 18th birthday like I was supposed to. In our pack, the Red Moon Pack, if you don't shift by 18, you're considered broken. A stain on the bloodline that needs to be erased. I begged them to give me more time. I told them I could feel my wolf. She was there, just beneath my skin, waiting. But they didn't listen. They never listened to Omegas like me. The council voted, 12 voices saying drown her, 3 saying give her time, and 1, my mate's voice, Beta Damien Blackthorn, saying nothing at all. Silence can be the cruelest sound of all. This is the story of how I died in that lake and rose as something they could never have imagined. How I learned that what they called defective was actually divine. How the moon goddess herself pulled me from death's grip and turned me into her weapon. They tried to drown the Omega. They didn't know they were creating their judgment. Chapter 1. The Council's Verdict. The council chamber smelled like old wood, burning sage, and centuries of decisions made by men who believed their word was law. I stood in the center of the circular room, my wrists already bruised from where the guards had gripped me too tightly when they dragged me from my home. Around me, sitting in their carved oak chairs like judges at a trial I'd already lost, were the 12 members of the Red Moon Pack Council. Above them all, in the Alpha's seat, carved from ancient oak and inlaid with silver that probably cost more than my family's home, sat Alpha Cornelius Redmoon. He was 60 years old, with silver hair and cold gray eyes that had never looked at me with anything resembling kindness. Beside him sat Luna Vivian, his mate of 40 years, a woman whose beauty had aged into something sharp and cruel. And there, standing just behind the Alpha's seat, was Damien, my mate. I felt the bond pull between us, that invisible thread that had snapped into place 3 weeks ago when our eyes met across the training grounds. It had been the happiest moment of my life. The beta of the Red Moon Pack, strong and respected, was my fated mate. For 3 perfect days, I thought everything would be okay. I thought having a mate like Damien would protect me from the whispers, from the judgment, from the fear that lived in my chest every day that I still couldn't shift. I was wrong. Damien wouldn't meet my eyes now. He stood rigid, his jaw clenched, staring at some point above my head as if I didn't exist. That's when I knew I'd already lost. Maya Thornwood, Elder Aldous began, his voice carrying through the chamber with the weight of authority and barely concealed disgust. You stand before this council to answer for your failure to fulfill the most basic requirement of pack membership. Failure. The word hit like a physical blow. You have lived in this pack for 19 years, Aldous continued, consulting a scroll as if reading off a grocery list instead of condemning a person. You reached your 18th birthday 14 months ago. The shift should have come naturally, instinctively, as it does for every wolf. Yet here you stand, still human, still weak, still defective. I'm not defective, I said, hating how my voice shook. My wolf is there. I can feel her. She's just... Excuses, Elder Miriam interrupted, her voice sharp. We've heard them all before, child. My wolf is sleeping. I need more time. I'm a late bloomer. But the truth is simple. Wolves who cannot shift are not wolves at all. She's a burden on pack resources, Councilmember Thaddeus added, leaning forward with gleaming eyes. He'd always hated my family, hated that we were Omegas who didn't know our place. She eats our food, occupies our housing, and contributes nothing. No patrol duty, no hunting, no defending. She's dead weight. I work in the kitchens, I protested. I help with the children. I contribute. Human work, Thaddeus spat. Any human could do what you do. You are supposed to be a wolf. One by one, they spoke, listing my failures, cataloging every way I'd disappointed them, failed them, shamed them just by existing. And through it all, Damien said nothing. I looked at him desperately, silently begging him to speak, to defend me, to use his position as beta to override this madness. Our eyes met for just a moment. I saw pain there, regret, but also resignation. The bond, I whispered, knowing he could hear me even across the room. Damien, the bond chose us. That has to mean something. His jaw tightened, but he looked away. Which brings us to another matter, Luna Vivian said, her voice like poisoned honey. The unfortunate situation of the mate bond. All eyes turned to Damien. Beta Damien, Alpha Cornelius said, his voice heavy with false sympathy. We understand this is difficult. The bond is sacred, given by the moon goddess herself. But we must also acknowledge that sometimes the goddess's plans are mysterious. Perhaps this bond was a test of your loyalty to the pack. My blood ran cold. A test? I repeated. You're saying the moon goddess made a mistake? I'm saying, the Alpha continued, ignoring me entirely, that the pack must come first, always, and a beta cannot be bonded to a wolf, who cannot shift. It weakens your position, Damien. It makes you vulnerable. Which is why, Elder Aldous said, pulling out another scroll, we are prepared to offer a solution. If Beta Damien formally rejects the bond, we can petition the moon goddess for dissolution. He would be free to mate appropriately, and the girl would be released from pack obligations. Released. They meant exiled. Or worse. Damien, I said, my voice breaking, please don't do this. He finally looked at me fully, and I saw it in his eyes. He'd already decided. I'm sorry, Maya, he said, and his voice was barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry. The council has voted, Alpha Cornelius announced. 12 in favor of exile, 3 opposed. However, he paused, and something in that pause made my skin crawl. Exile is merciful. It assumes the individual has value enough to survive on their own. In this case, we believe exile would be insufficient. What are you saying? My mother's voice came from the back of the chamber. I hadn't even known she was there. What are you planning to do to my daughter? The Luna smiled. It was the cruelest expression I'd ever seen. The cursed lake, she said simply. It's tradition, isn't it? For those who prove too defective to live among us? Horror crashed over me. The cursed lake was a legend, a nightmare we told to scare children into behaving. Deep in pack territory, there was a lake so dark and cold that nothing lived in it. According to legend, the moon goddess herself had cursed it centuries ago, drowning the pack's enemies in its depths. No one who went into that water came out. You can't, my mother screamed. She's just a girl. She's 19 years old. You can't murder her for not shifting on schedule. It's not murder, Alpha Cornelius said calmly. It's justice. If she's truly a wolf, if her wolf is truly just sleeping as she claims, then the cold water will shock the shift. It's happened before, and if it doesn't, he shrugged. Then the goddess has made her judgment clear. This is insane, my mother sobbed. Damien, please, you're her mate. Stop this. You have the authority. I have no authority here, Damien said, and his voice was hollow. The council has voted. I cannot override that without risking civil war. So you'll let them kill her? My mother's voice cracked. You'll stand there and watch your mate die? Damien closed his eyes. I abstain from this decision. Let the council's will be done. The coward's choice. Neither supporting me nor condemning me, letting others do his dirty work while he kept his hands technically clean. Then it's decided, the Alpha said, standing. Maya Thornwood will be taken to the cursed lake at dawn tomorrow. She will be given the chance to shift and survive. If the goddess wills it, she will live. If not, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Guards seized my arms before I could run. My mother's screams followed me as they dragged me toward the holding cell where I'd spend my last night alive. And Damien, my mate, the man the moon goddess had chosen for me, he just stood there and watched me go. Chapter 2. The last night. They threw me into a stone cell beneath the pack house. No windows, no light except what filtered through the barred door. I could hear water dripping somewhere, a sound that would haunt me for what little time I had left. I don't know how long I sat there in the darkness before I heard footsteps approaching. Maya, Damien's voice. I didn't answer, didn't even look up. Maya, please, let me explain. Explain what? I asked, my voice dead. How you're going to let them kill me. How the mate bond means so little to you that you'd rather watch me drown than stand up to your alpha. I heard him sink down on the other side of the door. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, I said, finally looking at him through the bars. Even now, even hating him, the bond pulled. I could feel his anguish, his conflict. It made everything worse. You could stop this. You're the beta. You have power. Not enough, he said, running his hands through his dark hair in frustration. If I challenge the council's decision, they'll call for a vote of no confidence. They'll remove me from my position. Maybe exile me too. So you're choosing your position over my life. I'm choosing the pack over my personal feelings, he corrected, but his voice lacked conviction. A beta has to think of the greater good. The greater good, I repeated bitterly. Tell me, Damien, how is murdering an innocent girl for the crime of being a late shifter the greater good? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you remember what I told you the night the bond snapped into place? I remembered. We'd been in the forest, and he'd taken my hands and said, "You're mine now, Maya, and I protect what's mine." I remember, I whispered. I meant it, he said, his voice rough. I still mean it. But Maya, you have to understand. If I lose my position, I lose all ability to protect anyone, including you. You're not protecting me now, I pointed out. You're letting them kill me. I'm trying to find another way. There has to be another way. There isn't, I said flatly. You already chose, Damien. When you stayed silent in that council chamber, when you abstained instead of fighting for me, you chose. And your choice was to let me die. Maya, I hope it was worth it, I interrupted. I hope your position, your status, your precious place in the pack, I hope it keeps you warm at night when I'm gone, because that's all you'll have left. He stood abruptly. I'll fix this. Somehow I'll... Don't bother, I said, turning my back on him. Just go. If you won't fight for me, then at least give me the dignity of dying without having to look at your cowardly face. He left, and I was alone. I don't know when I started crying. Big, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. Not for me, I was too numb for that. But for my mother, who'd already lost my father to a rogue attack 5 years ago. She'd be truly alone now, for the life I'd never have, the children I'd never raise, the mate bond I'd never fully explore, for the wolf inside me, who I'd finally started to feel stirring just in the last few weeks. She was there, I knew she was. She was just taking her time. Not enough time, I thought bitterly. Little wolf. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Female, ancient, warm as moonlight and powerful as thunder. I looked up, startled. The cell was filled with silver light, and standing before me was a woman. She was tall, impossibly tall, with hair that seemed to be made of moonbeams and eyes deep as the night sky. She wore robes that flowed like water, shimmering with starlight. Who? I started. You know who I am, she said gently. And I did. Every wolf knew that voice in their soul. We were born hearing it, even if most never heard it clearly again. The moon, goddess, Selene herself. I fell to my knees. Goddess. Stand, Maya, she said, and her voice held command that made me obey before I realized I was moving. I don't need your worship. I need your attention. I stood, shaking. Am I already dead? She smiled sadly. Not yet. But you will be soon if we don't change your fate. Can you stop them? I asked desperately. Can you tell the Alpha that I'm not defective, that my wolf is real? I could, she said, but I won't. The words hit like ice water. Why not? Because sometimes, she said, walking around me in a circle, studying me from every angle, the only way to become what you're meant to be is to die first. I stared at her. I don't understand. Your wolf, she said, stopping in front of me. You can feel her, can't you? She's there, just beneath your skin, waiting. Yes, I whispered, but she won't come out. I've tried everything. She won't come out because she can't, the goddess interrupted. Maya, your wolf, isn't late. She isn't broken. She's waiting for the right moment. Because she's not an ordinary wolf. My heart hammered. What do you mean? The goddess reached out and touched my chest, right over my heart. The touch sent silver light blazing through my veins. 500 years ago, she said, I created the first divine wolves, wolves who carried my power in their blood. They were my avatars on earth, my voice, my judgment, my hands that healed and protected and punished when necessary. They kept the packs in balance, prevented cruelty, enforced my true laws. I've heard stories, I said, but they died out centuries ago. They did, she confirmed, but bloodlines don't disappear, Maya. They sleep. And you, she smiled. You are the first divine wolf to be born in 500 years. I couldn't process it, couldn't breathe. That's why your shift hasn't come, she continued. A divine wolf doesn't shift the same way ordinary wolves do. Your transformation requires a catalyst, a moment of extreme trial. Death itself, in fact. The drowning, I whispered. Yes, she said. Tomorrow they will take you to the cursed lake. They will chain you with silver and throw you into the depths, and you will die, Maya. Your human self will perish in that cold water. Terror clawed up my throat. Then why are you telling me this? Why not just let me die in ignorance? Because, the goddess said, cupping my face in her hands, I need you to know that death is not the end. When you sink beneath those waters, when the silver burns your skin and the cold stops your heart, I will be there. I will catch you between death and gone, and I will give you a choice. A choice? Return to life as my divine wolf, she said. Accept my power, become my avatar, and use your gifts to reform the packs, to protect the vulnerable, to punish the cruel, to be my weapon of justice in a world that has forgotten what justice means. And if I refuse, her expression turned sad. Then I let you go to the peace of death. No pain, no fear, no more suffering. Just rest. It should have been an easy choice, life versus death. But the life she was offering wasn't just life, it was responsibility, power, purpose. It was also revenge. They'll regret it, I said quietly. If I come back with your power, everyone who voted to kill me, everyone who stood by and watched, they'll regret it. Yes, the goddess said simply. But Maya, you must promise me something. What? That you'll use your power for justice, not vengeance. There's a difference. Justice is about protecting others from suffering what you suffered. Vengeance is about making others suffer because you did. I thought about that. About my mother, who'd lose her daughter. About every other Omega in our pack who lived in fear of being called defective. About future generations who might face the same fate I was facing. Justice, I said firmly. I want to make sure no one else has to go through this. The Ebed goddess smiled. Then tomorrow, when they throw you into that lake, remember, you're not drowning, you're being baptized. She started to fade. Wait, I called out. What about Damien, the mate bond? The bond will break when you die, she said. And when you return, it will be your choice whether to acknowledge it again. Choose wisely, little wolf. Not all bonds are blessings. Then she was gone, and I was alone in the dark cell. But for the first time since the council's verdict, I didn't feel afraid. I felt ready. Chapter 3. The drowning dawn came too quickly and not quickly enough. Guards arrived with the first light, opening the cell door with a screech of metal that made me flinch. I'd spent the night alternating between terror and determination, between wanting to fight and wanting to surrender. But when they grabbed my arms, I didn't resist. My mother was there when they brought me out. She tried to run to me, but other guards held her back. Maya, she screamed. Baby? No, please. It's okay, Mom, I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. It's going to be okay. They're going to kill you, she sobbed. My baby, my only child. I love you, I called to her as they dragged me toward the waiting cart. I love you so much, remember that. The entire pack had assembled to watch. Tradition, apparently. When someone was sentenced to the cursed lake, everyone had to witness it, a reminder of what happened to those who failed the pack's standards. I saw faces I'd known my whole life. Some looked sad, many looked indifferent. A few, like Thaddeus and Luna Vivian, looked pleased. And then there was Damien. He stood with the Alpha, his face carved from stone, showing nothing. But I felt the bond between us stretching, straining. Our eyes met. I felt his pain through the connection, his regret, his conflict. But he still said nothing. I looked away first. The cart ride to the cursed lake took an hour. They'd wrapped my wrists and ankles in silver chains, the kind used for prisoners. The metal burned my skin, leaving red welts that stung with every movement. "Please," one of the younger guards said quietly. He was maybe 20, new to the pack guard. "Is there anything you want us to tell your mother, after?" "Tell her I fought," I said. "Tell her I didn't give up." He nodded, his throat working. The cursed lake appeared through the trees like something from a nightmare. It was perfectly circular, maybe 200 feet across, with water so dark it looked black. No plants grew around its edges. No animals came near it. Even the air felt wrong, cold and still, as if the lake existed in its own pocket of death. They dragged me to the water's edge. The Alpha and Luna stood on a raised platform, with Damien beside them. The rest of the pack formed a circle around the lake. "Maya Thornwood," Alpha Cornelius announced, his voice carrying across the assembled wolves. "You have been found defective, unable to shift, unworthy of pack membership. By ancient law, you are hereby sentenced to the trial of the lake. If the moon goddess finds you worthy, you will shift and survive. If not," he shrugged, "then the goddess has spoken." "Any last words?" Luna Vivian asked, that cruel smile still on her face. I looked at them all, every wolf who'd come to watch me die. "I have something to say," I said, keeping my voice strong. "Then speak," the Alpha said. I met Damien's eyes. "To my mate, who chose his position over my life, I release you. When I die, the bond dies with me. May you find comfort in your cowardice." His face went white. I turned to the Alpha and Luna. "To those who sentenced me, the moon goddess is watching, and she remembers everything." "Enough," the Alpha said. "Guards, proceed." The two guards grabbed my arms. I saw the regret on the younger one's face as they carried me toward the water. "Wait," my mother's voice screamed from somewhere in the crowd. "Please, let me say goodbye." "No," the Luna said coldly. "That's not part of the tradition." They reached the water's edge. The older guard counted down. 3. The silver chains burned. 2. I took a deep breath. 1. They threw me in. The cold hit first, water so freezing it felt like knives against my skin. I sank fast, the silver chains pulling me down like anchors. I tried to hold my breath, but the shock of the cold made me gasp. Water flooded my lungs. Panic seized me. I thrashed, fighting against the chains, against the water, against death itself. But it was useless. The chains were too heavy, the water too deep. I sank, and sank, and sank. My vision started to fade. Dark spots appeared at the edges. My chest burned with the need for air that wouldn't come. This is it, I thought. This is dying. Above me, impossibly far away, I could see the surface, sunlight filtering through, making the water look almost beautiful. And then I saw them, silhouettes standing at the water's edge. My pack. Damien, watching me die. The bond between Damien and me stretched thinner and thinner. I felt it preparing to snap, and then it did. The mate bond broke with an almost audible crack in my chest. I felt Damien's presence rip away, felt that invisible thread that had connected us shatter into nothing. I wanted to scream, but I had no air left. My vision went black. My heart stopped. I died, and then silver light, not from above, from the sunlight. This came from below, from deep in the lake where nothing should exist. My eyes opened. How could they open when I was dead? And I saw her, the moon goddess, rising through the water like a star being born. "Hello, little wolf," her voice echoed in my mind. "Are you ready?" I couldn't speak, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but watch as she reached me. She touched my chest right over my heart. "You died bravely," she said. "You died with dignity. And now, if you choose, you will rise with power." "I choose," I thought with everything I had left. "I choose life." "Then live," she said, "and become what you were always meant to be." Divine power exploded into me. It felt like lightning in my veins, like fire and ice and moonlight all at once. My back arched as the power filled every cell, every molecule, every atom of my being. And then I felt her, my wolf. Not small and weak like I'd feared, massive, ancient, divine. She surged forward, and for the first time in my life, I shifted. The change was instantaneous and complete. My body morphed, bones reshaping, muscles reforming. The silver chains that had been burning my human skin simply melted, dissolved into nothing, unable to contain what I'd become. I was huge, bigger than any wolf I'd ever seen. My fur was pure white with silver markings that glowed faintly, as if I'd been dusted with moonlight. And I could breathe. I looked at the goddess through my wolf's eyes. She smiled. "Beautiful," she said. "Now, show them what they created." Power surged through me. I kicked off from the bottom of the lake, shooting toward the surface like a missile. I exploded from the water in an eruption of spray and silver light. On the shore, I heard screams. I landed on the bank in a crouch, water streaming off my glowing fur. My wolf was massive. I stood at least 6 feet tall at the shoulder, bigger than the alpha himself. The pack scrambled backward in terror. "What?" Alpha Cornelius started. I shifted back to human, the change flowing naturally now. I stood there, dripping wet but very much alive, my eyes glowing silver with divine power. "I am Maya Thornwood," I said, and my voice carried with unnatural power. "The moon goddess is chosen, the first divine wolf in 500 years. I raised my hand, and silver light blazed from my palm. "And I have come back to deliver judgment." The pack fell to their knees, not by choice, by force. Divine power commanded them to submit, and their wolves obeyed instinctively. All of them kneeling, all of them terrified, including Damien, who looked at me with horror and recognition and devastating regret. "You tried to drown the defective Omega," I said, walking forward slowly, power crackling around me with each step. "You didn't know you were creating the moon goddess's weapon." I stopped in front of the Alpha and Luna, both on their knees, unable to rise. "I told you," I said quietly. "The goddess is watching, and she remembers everything." Chapter 4. Divine Judgment. The silence after my words was absolute. 500 wolves knelt before me, unable to rise, their own instincts forcing submission to the divine power radiating from my skin. I could feel their fear, their shock, their disbelief. "Good," my wolf growled in my mind. "Let them fear. Let them understand what they've done." But the moon goddess's words echoed in my head. "Justice, not vengeance. There's a difference." I took a breath, trying to center myself. The power thrumming through my veins wanted release. It wanted punishment. It wanted to make them all suffer, as I had suffered. But that wasn't what I'd promised. "Stand," I said, releasing the divine command. They rose shakily, most unable to meet my eyes. Alpha Cornelius recovered first. Of course he did. Alphas were trained never to show weakness. "This is unprecedented," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "A divine wolf. We thought they were myth." "They were real," I said coldly, "until packs like yours killed them off for threatening your power." His jaw tightened. "Maya, if you had known, you would have killed me faster," I interrupted. "Don't pretend this would have changed anything. You sentenced me to death for being different, for being unable to shift on your schedule. That was your choice." "We were following pack law," Luna Vivian said, finding her voice, but I could hear it shaking. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Pack law. Let me tell you what the moon goddess thinks of your pack laws." I let divine power flare, making them all flinch. "She's horrified. She's disgusted. She gave you the gift of shifting as a blessing, and you've turned it into a weapon, a tool to hurt anyone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of acceptable." I turned to address the entire pack. "How many of you have lived in fear? Fear that you wouldn't shift on time, fear that your shift wasn't strong enough, fear that you'd be judged defective and thrown away like garbage?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I saw nods, especially from the Omegas. "That ends today," I declared. "I am the moon goddess's avatar. I carry her authority, and I'm here to deliver her judgment on the Red Moon Pack." "You have no right," the Alpha started. I have every right, I said, and divine power made my voice boom. The goddess gave it to me. Would you like to challenge her authority? He fell silent. I walked slowly around the gathered pack, letting them see me, letting them feel the power radiating from me. Here is the goddess's decree, I said. No wolf will be executed or exiled for failing to shift on schedule. Some wolves are late bloomers. Some have divine blood that requires special circumstances to manifest. All will be given time and patience. I saw relief on many faces, especially the younger wolves. Second, I continued, Omegas will be treated with respect. Their work is valuable. Their presence is essential. Any pack member who abuses an Omega will answer to me personally. Third, no wolf will be executed without a fair trial. Real evidence, real defense, not just a council vote based on prejudice and convenience. I stopped in front of the Alpha. These are not requests. They're commands from the moon goddess herself. Refuse them, and I will strip your ability to shift entirely. You'll live as humans, powerless, until you learn what it's like to be vulnerable. The threat hung in the air. We accept, Alpha Cornelius said finally, the words clearly bitter in his mouth. The Red Moon Pack will follow the goddess's decrees. Good, I said. Then I turned to the Luna. As for you, Vivian, she paled. You smiled, I said quietly, when they threw me in that lake. You stood there and smiled while a 19-year-old girl drowned. I was following tradition. You were enjoying it, I interrupted. I felt it. Divine wolves can sense truth and lies. And you, Luna, you've been lying for years about your compassion, your kindness, your care for pack members. I circled her slowly. How many Omegas have you abused? How many young wolves have you crushed with your cruelty, disguised as tough love? She said nothing, but I could see the truth in her eyes. The goddess is merciful, I said. So I won't take your wolf. But I am removing you from your position as Luna, effective immediately. Gasps erupted through the crowd. You can't do that, Cornelius protested. She's my mate. She's unworthy of leadership, I said firmly. A Luna is supposed to care for the pack, especially the vulnerable. She's done the opposite. The position requires someone with actual empathy. I turned to address the pack again. Is there anyone here who would make a better Luna? Someone who has shown true care for pack members, especially those others overlook? Silence. Then a voice called out, Healer Margaret! I turned and saw an older woman, maybe 50, with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair. She'd been the pack healer for 20 years. Margaret, I said, would you accept the position? She looked shocked. I'm just an Omega, Lady Maya. I'm not... Exactly, I said. You know what it's like to be overlooked, to be underestimated. That's exactly what this pack needs. I looked at the Alpha. Margaret is now Luna. If you have a problem with that, you can join Vivian in losing your position. His face was red with rage, but he nodded. The pack recognizes Margaret as Luna. Cheers erupted from the Omegas and several others. Vivian looked like she wanted to kill me, but divine power kept her in check. And then there was Damien. He'd been silent through all of this, standing rigid, his face pale. Our eyes met, and even without the mate bond, I could read his expression. Regret, grief, shame. Beta Damien, I said, and my voice came out colder than I intended. He straightened. Maya, Lady Maya, You stood silent, I interrupted, when the council voted to kill me, when they dragged me to that lake, when they threw me into water cold enough to stop my heart. You stood there and said nothing. I know, he whispered. I know, And then the bond broke, I continued, when I died. Did you feel it snap? He flinched. Yes. Good, I said. Because that bond is gone, Damien. The moon goddess doesn't reforge bonds for cowards who let their mates die rather than fight for them. I'm sorry, he said, and his voice broke. Maya, I'm so sorry. I should have stopped it. I should have challenged the council. You should have loved me more than you feared losing your position, I finished. But you didn't, and now we both have to live with that. I started to walk away, then stopped. You keep your position as Beta, for now. But understand something, Damien. You will never touch me again. You will never call me by my first name again. And if you ever let the council abuse someone vulnerable the way they abused me, I will personally remove your wolf and make you watch while I destroy everything you've built." He dropped to his knees, and I saw tears streaming down his face. "I understand, Lady Maya." I walked past him without another word. My mother broke through the crowd, running toward me. "Maya, baby, oh gods, you're alive!" I caught her as she threw herself into my arms, sobbing, "I'm alive, Mom. I'm okay." "I thought I'd lost you," she wept. "When they threw you in, when you sank, I thought—" "I know," I soothed, stroking her hair. "But the goddess had other plans." She pulled back, looking at me with wonder. "A divine wolf." "My daughter is a divine wolf," I smiled. Apparently being defective was just me being divine. Who knew? She laughed through her tears. That's when I felt it. A presence approaching. Multiple presences, powerful ones. I turned and saw 4 wolves emerging from the forest. Not red moonpack wolves. These were strangers. They shifted to human form as they approached, and I recognized their pack markers. 1 from Blood Moon Pack, 1 from Nightshade, 1 from Silverclaw, 1 from Thunderstrike. 4 different packs, all represented. The Nightshade representative stepped forward, a tall man with dark hair and darker eyes. "Lady Maya," he said, bowing his head respectfully. "My name is Kale. I'm Beta of Nightshade Pack. We felt something. A surge of divine power. We came to investigate." "Investigate," I repeated, my guard rising. "To see if the legends were true," he clarified. "To see if a divine wolf had really returned." He smiled. "And to offer our pack's allegiance if you'll have it." I blinked, surprised. "Why would Nightshade Pack want to ally with me?" "Because," Kale said seriously, "we've heard what happened here, the drowning, the cruelty, and we want no part of that kind of leadership." He glanced at Alpha Cornelius with barely concealed disgust. "If you're here to reform pack laws, to protect the vulnerable, to end the abuse of power, then Nightshade Pack stands with you." One by one, the other pack representatives stepped forward, all saying the same thing, all offering alliance. 4 packs, I whispered, just like that? "News travels fast in the wolf world," the Silverclaw representative said, "and a divine wolf returning after 500 years? That's more than news, Lady Maya. That's a revolution." I looked around at the assembled wolves, Red Moon Pack, forced to accept my authority, 4 other packs voluntarily offering alliance, and me, a 19-year-old Omega who'd woken up yesterday, expecting to die, now holding more power than I'd ever imagined. "I accept your allegiances," I said finally, "but know this. I'm not here to build an empire. I'm here to fix what's broken. If your packs are already treating their members fairly, I won't interfere. But if I find abuse, cruelty, injustice, I let divine power flare. I will intervene. Divine authority doesn't negotiate." They all nodded, understanding. "Then we have an accord," Kale said. He turned to Alpha Cornelius. "Red Moon Pack is on notice. The divine wolf is watching. I suggest you behave accordingly." The Alpha's face was purple with rage, but he said nothing. As the sun set that first day of my new life, I stood at the edge of the cursed lake, no longer cursed but transformed into something holy, the place where I died and been reborn, and looked out at the water. "Thank you," I whispered to the moon goddess, "for choosing me, for believing I was strong enough." "You were always strong enough," her voice echoed in my mind. "You just needed the right catalyst. Death has a way of showing us our true strength." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," she said, "you learn what it means to be divine. You train, you grow, you find others who need protection, and you prepare." "Prepare for what?" "War," she said simply. "Not all alphas will accept reform peacefully. Some will fight. Some will try to kill you before you can change things. You need to be ready." I took a breath. "Then I'll be ready." But even as I said it, I felt eyes on me. I turned and found Damien standing at the tree line, watching me. We stared at each other across the distance. The mate bond was gone, shattered when I died. But something else remained. Some connection I couldn't name. Regret, longing, the ghost of what could have been. I turned away first. I had more important things to think about than a mate who'd proven himself unworthy. I had a world to change. Chapter 5. The Training. The first week after my transformation was chaos. Red Moon Pack walked on eggshells around me. No one quite knew how to treat a divine wolf, someone who looked 19 but carried the moon goddess's power. Technically, I outranked the alpha. Technically, I outranked everyone. It was terrifying. "You need training," Kyle from Nightshade Pack told me on the third day. He'd stayed behind while the other pack representatives returned home, claiming he wanted to ensure the transition went smoothly. I suspected he was actually making sure Alpha Cornelius didn't try to kill me in my sleep. "Training in what?" I asked. We were in the forest, away from prying eyes. "I can shift now. I have divine power. What else is there?" Kyle smiled. "Everything else. Lady Maya, you have raw power. That's clear. But power without control is dangerous. You could hurt someone accidentally. Or worse, someone could manipulate you into using that power wrongly." "Who would manipulate me?" "Alphas," he said bluntly. "Once word spreads about what you can do, and it will spread fast. Every alpha in the region will want to use you for their own purposes. They'll appeal to your sense of justice. They'll tell you sob stories about neighboring packs abusing their members. And some of those stories will be true, but some will be lies designed to get you to attack their enemies." I hadn't thought of that. "So what do I do?" "Learn to discern truth from lies," he said. "Divine wolves are supposed to have that ability naturally, but it takes practice to use it well. Also learn to control your power output. Right now, when you command wolves to kneel, you're using enough force to command 1,000 wolves. That's overkill for dealing with individuals, and it exhausts you unnecessarily." He was right. After the confrontation at the lake, I'd slept for 14 hours straight. "Teach me," I said. And he did. Kyle was patient but demanding. Every morning we met in the forest at dawn. He'd brought a few nightshade wolves with him, volunteers, who were willing to help me practice. First, I learned to sense lies. "Every wolf has a heartbeat," Kale explained. "When they lie, it changes, speeds up or skips. Divine wolves can hear those changes from hundreds of feet away, but you need to learn to focus on individual heartbeats in a crowd." We practiced for hours. Kyle would have 10 wolves line up, and each would make a statement, some true, some false. I had to identify which was which. At first, I got maybe half right. By the end of the week, I had perfect accuracy. Next came power control. "Commanding wolves is about connection," Kyle taught. "You're not forcing them. You're making their wolf recognize your authority as divine. But you can modulate how much authority you project. Think of it like volume control. Right now, you're always shouting. Learn to whisper." This was harder. Divine power wanted to surge out at full force, but gradually I learned. I could command a single wolf without affecting anyone else nearby. Could even suggest rather than command, making it feel like their wolf's own idea to obey. "That's dangerous," I said when I realized what I was doing. "I could manipulate people without them knowing." "Yes," Kale agreed, "which is why divine wolves were supposed to have rigorous ethical training. Power without morality is just tyranny." He made me swear oaths to the moon goddess, promises that I would use my power only for justice, never for personal gain or revenge, that I would protect the vulnerable, not dominate them, that I would reform, not conquer. I took those oaths seriously, but there were temptations. One afternoon, Luna Vivian, former Luna, now stripped of her title, approached me while I was alone. "Lady Maya," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "may I speak with you?" I'd gotten better at sensing lies. Her entire presence radiated dishonesty. "Speak," I said warily. "I wanted to apologize," she said, her eyes not meeting mine, "for my behavior, for smiling when they—" She couldn't even say it. "I was wrong. I see that now, and I hope you can forgive me." I listened to her heartbeat. It was racing, stressed, but not in the pattern of sincerity. This was fear, not remorse. "You're not sorry," I said flatly. "You're afraid." She flinched. You're afraid that I'll do to you what you tried to do to me," I continued. "You're afraid I'll find some excuse to execute you or exile you. So you're performing contrition, hoping I'll show mercy." Her mask cracked. "What do you want from me?" "Actual change," I said. "Not performance, not empty apologies. I want you to genuinely understand why what you did was wrong." I do understand. No, I interrupted. You understand that you got caught. You understand that there are consequences now, but you don't actually believe drowning a 19-year-old girl for being a late shifter was wrong. You just wish you'd gotten away with it. She said nothing, which was answer. Enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to spend the next year working in the Omega quarters, cooking, cleaning, doing all the work you once considered beneath you. And maybe, just maybe, you'll learn what it's like to be treated as less than. Maybe you'll develop actual empathy. You can't force me to— I absolutely can, I said, letting divine power leak into my voice. I can force you to do anything. I could make you scrub floors for the rest of your life if I wanted. But I'm giving you a chance to choose. Do the work willingly, learn the lesson, and maybe redeem yourself. Or refuse, and I'll remove your wolf entirely. Your choice. She went pale. I'll do the work. Good, I said. Start tomorrow. After she left, Kyle appeared from the shadows. He'd been listening. That was well done, he said. You resisted the temptation to punish her cruelly. You gave her a path to redemption instead. I wanted to hurt her, I admitted. I wanted to make her feel what I felt. The fear, the helplessness, the cold water filling my lungs. But you didn't, Kyle said gently. That's what matters. Justice isn't about making yourself feel better through revenge. It's about preventing future harm. I nodded, but the truth was, it was hard. So hard to have this power and not use it to punish everyone who'd hurt me, especially when I had to see Damien every day. He tried to apologize again on the 5th day. I was alone in the forest, practicing shifting, going from human to wolf and back, learning to make the change instant and effortless. Maya, I spun, finding him standing at the edge of the clearing. Don't call me that, I said coldly. It's Lady Maya. He flinched. Lady Maya, I'm sorry, I needed to talk to you. We have nothing to discuss. Please, he said, taking a step forward. Just 5 minutes. That's all I ask. I should have said no, should have walked away, but some masochistic part of me needed to hear what he had to say. Fine, I said. 5 minutes. He let out a shaky breath. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But Maya, Lady Maya, I need you to know that I regret it. Every second of every day, I regret not fighting for you. Is this supposed to make me feel better? I asked. Your regret doesn't undo anything. I know, he said, but I need you to understand why I didn't fight. It wasn't because I didn't care. It was because I was terrified. Terrified of what? Losing your position? Terrified of starting a civil war, he said. Lady Maya, you don't understand the politics. If I'd challenged the council's decision, they would have called for a vote of no confidence. They had the numbers to remove me as beta. And if that happened, there would have been fighting. Wolves loyal to me versus wolves loyal to the council. People would have died. So instead, you let me die, I said, to prevent hypothetical deaths. Yes, he admitted, and it was the wrong choice. I see that now. I should have fought anyway. Should have trusted that standing up for what was right would matter more than preventing conflict. I studied him. My lie detection ability told me he was being sincere. He really did regret it. But sincerity didn't change anything. You were my mate, I said quietly. The moon goddess herself chose us for each other, and when I needed you most, you chose political stability over my life. What kind of mate is that? A coward, he said, his voice breaking. I'm a coward, Maya. I failed you in every possible way. Yes, I agreed. You did. Is there any chance? He started. No, I interrupted. The bond is broken, Damien. It shattered when I died. And even if it hadn't, even if the goddess offered to reforge it, I would refuse. Pain flashed across his face. I understand. Do you? I stepped closer. Because I don't think you do. You lost a mate bond. That's painful, I'm sure. But I lost everything. My pack, my home, my life. I had to die and be remade just to survive. And you think apologizing fixes that? No, he whispered, but I had to try. Well, you tried, I said, and my answer is no. We're done, Damien. You're my beta because the pack needs you. But personally, you're nothing to me. I walked away, leaving him standing there. and I told myself the tears on my face were from anger, not grief. Chapter 6. The Alpha's Plan. 2 weeks after my resurrection, things seemed to be settling into a new normal. The pack had adjusted to having a divine wolf in their midst. Margaret was doing well as the new Luna, showing more genuine care in 2 weeks than Vivian had in 20 years. I should have known the peace wouldn't last. Kyle found me one morning, his face grim. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Alpha Cornelius has been having secret meetings," he said, "with alphas from other packs, ones that didn't offer you alliance." Ice ran down my spine. "What kind of meetings?" "The kind where they discuss how to handle a divine wolf who's threatening traditional power structures," Kyle said. "Maya, I think they're planning something. Possibly an assassination attempt." "But I'm the moon goddess's avatar," I said. "Killing me would bring her wrath." "They're planning to make it look like an accident," Kyle interrupted, "or like you went rogue and had to be put down for the safety of all packs." Rage surged through me. "Cornelius is plotting to kill me after everything?" "He never wanted reform," Kyle said. "He accepted your authority because he had no choice in that moment, with divine power radiating from you and half his pack ready to follow you instead of him. But he's an alpha who just got publicly humiliated by a 19-year-old Omega. His pride won't let that stand." "Then I'll remove him," I said. "Strip his position, make him—" "That's what he wants," Kale interrupted. "If you remove him without cause, it proves to other alphas that you're a tyrant. Who'll destroy anyone who doesn't submit completely. It'll turn packs against you." I wanted to scream. "So what do I do? Wait for him to kill me?" "We gather evidence," Kyle said. "Concrete proof of his plot. Then you act with full justification. Justice, not revenge. Remember?" He was right. I hated it, but he was right. "How do we get proof?" Kyle smiled grimly. "I have spies in his inner circle. Give me 3 days." But we didn't have 3 days. That night, I woke to the sound of my window shattering. I rolled out of bed just as a silver knife embedded itself in my pillow, right where my head had been seconds before. Assassins. 3 of them, wearing masks, moving with professional precision. "Divine Wolf," one of them said, his voice muffled. "Nothing personal, just business." I shifted instantly, my wolf bursting forth. In the small space of my bedroom, I was massive, barely fitting, all white fur and silver markings and divine power. The assassins hesitated. They'd clearly expected to kill me while I was still human. That hesitation cost them. I lunged, not to kill, but to incapacitate. My divine wolf was stronger, faster than any ordinary wolf. I had the first assassin pinned in seconds, my jaws around his throat, not biting, just threatening. The second one threw another silver knife. It hit my shoulder, and I yelped as the silver burned, but divine power healed the wound almost instantly. The third assassin was smart. He ran. I heard shouting outside, pack guards responding to the commotion. Within minutes, the room was full of wolves. Damien burst in first, having apparently been nearby, his eyes wild with fear. "Maya? Lady Maya, are you hurt?" "I'm fine," I said, shifting back to human. I grabbed a robe from my chair, suddenly aware I was naked. But these 2 aren't. The 2 assassins I'd caught were still on the floor, one pinned by 3 pack guards, the other groaning with what was probably a broken arm from where I'd thrown him into the wall. "Who sent you?" I demanded. The one with the broken arm spat at me. "We don't talk." "You will," I said, letting divine power enter my voice. "Tell me who sent you. Now." I'd learned from Kyle that I could use divine authority to compel truth. It was invasive, morally questionable, but in this case, necessary. The assassin's eyes went wide as his own wolf betrayed him, forcing the words out. "Alpha Cornelius. He hired us from Shadow Pack, said we'd be paid well to make your death look like a rogue attack." Gasps erupted around the room. "Did you record that?" I asked Kyle, who'd arrived during the interrogation. He held up a small device, a phone, recording everything. "Every word." I turned to Damien. "Gather the council and bring Alpha Cornelius, now." "But it's the middle of the night." "Now," I said, and divine authority made it impossible to refuse. 30 minutes later, the council chamber was full. Every council member, every high-ranking pack member, and Alpha. Cornelius himself, dragged from his bed and looking furious. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, summoning me like a common criminal. "Because you are a criminal," I said coldly. "You hired assassins to kill me." He sneered. "That's absurd. Where's your proof?" "Right here," Kyle said, playing the recording. Cornelius's voice filled the chamber, unmistakably his, discussing payment and timing with the assassins. The color drained from his face. "This is fake," he tried. "Doctored audio?" "Tell them the truth," I commanded, using divine authority. "Did you hire those assassins?" Cornelius's mouth opened against his will. "Yes," he gasped out. "Yes, I hired them. I couldn't let you destroy everything I've built. Couldn't let some omega bitch with divine power tear down traditions that have lasted centuries." He clapped a hand over his mouth, but it was too late. Shocked silence filled the chamber. "By attempting to murder the moon goddess's avatar," I said, "you've committed not just treason against the pack, but blasphemy against the goddess herself. The punishment is clear." I walked toward him slowly. He tried to back away, but divine power froze him in place. "I, Maya Thornwood, divine wolf and moon goddess's avatar, hereby strip you of your position as alpha of Red Moon Pack." Divine light blazed from my hand, and I touched his chest. Cornelius screamed as his alpha power was ripped away. Not his wolf, I left him that much. But the authority, the dominance, the ability to command, all gone. When I stepped back, he collapsed, gasping. "You're exiled from Red Moon Pack," I continued. "You have until dawn to leave. If you're found on Pack lands after sunrise, you'll be arrested and imprisoned." I turned to the council. "Who will lead the pack now?" Before anyone could answer, Damien stepped forward. "I will. If the pack accepts me." The council members looked at each other, then one by one they nodded. "The pack needs stability," Damien continued. "And Lady Maya needs to focus on her larger mission of reforming all packs, not micromanaging one. I can lead Red Moon Pack in her stead, following the reforms she's established." I studied him, sensed his sincerity. "Fine," I said. "But Damien, understand, you're on probation. One sign that you're reverting to the old ways, one instance of abuse or cruelty, and I'll remove you just as I did Cornelius." "Understood," he said, bowing his head. As the council dispersed to oversee Cornelius's exile, Kyle pulled me aside. "That was good," he said. "You acted with justification. You gave him due process. You showed mercy by leaving him his wolf. No alpha can claim you're a tyrant after this." "I don't feel merciful," I admitted. "I feel like I just set a precedent that anyone who disagrees with me gets exiled." "No," Kyle said firmly. "You set a precedent that anyone who tries to murder you faces consequences. There's a difference. Cornelius didn't just disagree. He hired assassins." I nodded, but unease still twisted in my gut. This was the reality of divine power. Every decision I made would be scrutinized. Every punishment would be used as an example, either of justice or tyranny, depending on who was telling the story. I'd wanted to change the wolf world. I was starting to understand what that would cost. Chapter 7. The bond that wasn't 6 months past. Half a year of learning, training, growing into my power. I'd visited 12 different packs, assessing their treatment of omegas, mediating disputes, teaching alphas that strength didn't mean cruelty. Some packs accepted reform easily, others resisted until I demonstrated what divine power could do. But slowly, things were changing, and I was exhausted. Kyle found me one evening in the forest, sitting by a stream, just staring at the water. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside me. "Define okay," I said. "I'm alive. I have power. I'm making a difference, but I'm also tired, Kale. So tired." "Divine work takes a toll," he said gently. "You're carrying the weight of reformation on your shoulders." "Sometimes I wish I could just be normal," I admitted. "Just a regular wolf, maybe work in a pack library or something quiet." "Would you really want that?" Kyle asked. "To not have this power? To not be able to protect others?" "No," I said immediately. "But I can wish it was easier." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kyle said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Do you regret losing the mate bond with Damien?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because I see how you look at him sometimes," Kyle said carefully, "like there's unfinished business, like part of you still, Part of me still wants to kill him for what he did, I interrupted. But another part, I don't know. The bond breaking didn't erase what I felt. It just broke the mystical connection. The feelings were still there for a while. Were? Kyle picked up on the past. Tense. I don't love him anymore, I said firmly. I can't love someone who proved they'd sacrifice me to save themselves. But sometimes I mourn what could have been. If he'd been braver, if he'd chosen differently. Kyle nodded. That's natural. What about you? I asked, turning the question back. You've been with me for 6 months. Don't you have a mate waiting for you back in Nightshade Pack? No mate, he said. No bond has snapped for me yet. At your age? I teased. He was maybe 30. Aren't you worried? Not particularly, he said. I figure the moon goddess will send me a mate when she thinks I'm ready. Until then, I have other purposes, he smiled. Like keeping a divine wolf out of trouble, I laughed. I'm not that bad. You tried to single-handedly challenge an entire pack of rogues last week, Kyle said dryly. You're absolutely that bad. They were attacking travelers, I protested. And there were 40 of them, he countered. You should have called for backup, not just charged in with divine power blazing. It worked out fine. Because I showed up with reinforcements, Kyle said. Maya, you're powerful. Maybe the most powerful wolf alive. But you're not invincible. You can be hurt. You can be killed, especially if someone catches you off guard. Are you my bodyguard now? I asked, amused. Someone needs to be, he muttered. The moment felt intimate, quiet, just the two of us in the forest with moonlight filtering through the trees. And then I felt it. The smallest pull, like a thread being tugged. I turned to Kale, my eyes widening. Did you feel? Yes, he breathed, staring at me with shock. The mate bond forming between us. It was nothing like what I'd felt with Damien. That bond had snapped into place instantly, overwhelming and undeniable. This was different, subtle, growing slowly like a seed that had been planted months ago and was just now starting to sprout. How long? I whispered. How long has this been forming? I don't know, Kale said. Maybe the whole 6 months? Maya, sometimes bonds are instant, but sometimes they grow gradually, especially for divine wolves, apparently. He stood abruptly, putting distance between us. This complicates things. Why? I asked, standing too. Because you're the moon goddess's avatar, he said. Your life is dangerous. You have enemies, people who want to kill you. And if we complete this bond, you become a target too, I finished, because they'll use you to hurt me. Exactly. We stared at each other across the small distance. We could reject it, I said quietly. Refuse the bond before it fully forms. We could, Kale agreed. Neither of us moved. Or, I said, taking a step toward him, we could acknowledge that the moon goddess clearly knows what she's doing, that maybe I need a mate who understands divine work, who won't run when things get hard, who'll stand beside me even when it's dangerous. Kyle's expression softened. Maya, I won't be... Damien. I won't stand silent when you need me. I won't choose safety over you. I know, I said. That's why the goddess chose you. He closed the distance between us, cupping my face in his hands. Are you sure? Once we complete this bond, I kissed him. The bond snapped fully into place, and I felt him, all of him, his strength, his loyalty, his absolute certainty that he'd die before letting anyone hurt me. When we pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. Well, Kyle said shakily, that's done. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. Yeah, it is. Your ex-mate is going to lose his mind when he finds out, Kyle said. Good, I said. Maybe it'll teach him what he lost. Chapter 8. The Luna's Secret. We returned to Red Moon Pack the next morning, the new mate bond between us obvious to anyone with functioning senses. Wolves congratulated us. Some seemed genuinely happy. Others looked calculating, wondering what this meant for pack politics. And Damien? He looked devastated. Maya, he said, catching me in a hallway. You mated with Kyle. That's none of your business, I said coolly. But the bond between us, broke when I died, I reminded him, because you let me die. You don't get to have opinions about my love life anymore, Damien. I walked away before he could respond. But that evening, something strange happened. I was in my chambers when Luna Margaret appeared, looking worried. Lady Maya, I need to speak with you privately. Of course, I said, gesturing her inside. What's wrong? Margaret closed the door carefully. Then she looked at me with troubled eyes. There's something you need to know, she said. About what happened at the cursed lake. Ice ran down my spine. What about it? The moon goddess came to me in a dream last night, Margaret said. She said it was time I told you the truth about why you couldn't shift. I know why, I said. I have divine blood. It requires a catalyst. That's only part of it, Margaret interrupted. Maya, your mother came to me when you were 15. She was terrified because you still hadn't shown any signs of your wolf, not even the usual heightened senses most wolves get before their first shift. My heart raced. And? I examined you, Margaret said quietly, and I found something. Someone had given you wolfsbane, not enough to kill you, but enough to suppress your wolf, to keep her from emerging. The world tilted. What? Who would? I don't know, Margaret said. But whoever did it started when you were young, maybe 5 or 6 years old. They'd been dosing you regularly for years. By the time I found it, your system was saturated. I managed to flush most of it out, but the damage was done. Your wolf was there, but she'd been suppressed for so long that she couldn't break through without significant trauma. The drowning, I whispered. Margaret nodded. The moon goddess used what they did to you, turned it into your transformation. But Maya, someone tried to cripple you on purpose. Someone wanted to make sure you'd never shift, that you'd be labeled defective. Rage, unlike anything I'd felt before, surged through me. Someone had poisoned me, a child, had systematically destroyed my ability to shift just to ruin my life. Who? I demanded. Who had access to me as a child? Who could have been dosing me? Margaret looked sick. That's why I hesitated to tell you, because the list is very short, Maya. It would have to be someone in your household, someone who had daily contact with you. My mind raced through possibilities. My mother? No, impossible. She'd been devastated by my inability to shift. My father? He'd died when I was 10, and the poisoning had continued after, which left only one person who'd had regular access to my food, my drinks, my daily life. Vivian, I said, the name burning like acid. Luna Vivian. She used to bring me special treats when I was little. Said she felt sorry for me because my father had died. Margaret's face confirmed my suspicion. She poisoned me, I said, divine power crackling in the air. For years, made sure I'd never shift. Why? Why would she do that? I don't know, Margaret admitted. But Maya, if you're going to confront her, you need to be sure. You need proof. I'll get proof, I said, already moving toward the door. Kyle intercepted me in the hallway, feeling my rage through our new bond. What happened? He demanded. I explained quickly. With every word, his expression darkened. Let me come with you, he said. No, I said, this is personal, but stay close in case I lose control. I found Vivian exactly where I expected, in the Omega quarters where she'd been working for the last 6 months. She was scrubbing floors, her hands raw and red, her once beautiful face lined with bitterness. She looked up when I entered, and fear flashed across her face. Lady Maya, tell me the truth, I said, divine power making it impossible for her to lie. Did you poison me with wolfsbane when I was a child? Her eyes went wide with shock. Then, against her will, words poured out. Yes, she gasped. I put wolfsbane in your food, in your drinks, every day for years. I wanted to make sure you'd never shift, never threaten Cornelius's power. I was 5 years old, I said, my voice shaking. I was a child. What possible threat could I have been? Your father was an alpha bloodline. Vivian spat now that the truth was out. He gave up his position to mate with your Omega mother, but you still carried that blood, that potential, and I knew if you shifted strong, if you showed alpha traits, Cornelius would see you as a threat to his son's inheritance. Cornelius doesn't have sons, I said, confused. He did, Vivian said bitterly. 2 of them. They died in a rogue attack when you were 4 years old. After that, I couldn't have more children. So I made sure no one else's children would threaten what should have been my son's legacy. I poisoned you, and 3 other alpha-blooded children in the pack. Made sure you'd all be labeled defective. Horror crashed over me. 3 others? They're dead now, Vivian said carelessly. Couldn't handle the shame of being wolfless. They chose exile and died in the wilderness. She'd killed 3 wolves, destroyed their lives out of petty jealousy and paranoid protection of a legacy that no longer even existed. You're a monster, I whispered. I did what I had to do, Vivian said, and if I could go back, I'd do it again. Divine power exploded from me. I didn't make a conscious choice, didn't plan it, but the rage, the grief for my stolen childhood, the horror of what she'd done. My hand shot out and I touched her chest. For the crime of poisoning children, I said, my voice resonating with divine authority. For destroying lives out of petty cruelty. For showing no remorse even now, I strip you of your wolf, permanently. Vivian screamed as her wolf was ripped away, not just suppressed, completely removed. She collapsed, sobbing, suddenly human in a way she'd never been before. You'll live as human for the rest of your days, I said coldly. And maybe you'll finally understand what you did to me. What you stole. I turned and walked out, leaving her crying on the floor. Kyle was waiting outside. Did you, he started. I removed her wolf, I said, permanently. She poisoned me for years, Kyle. Destroyed my childhood. Killed 3 other wolves through her actions. Then she deserved it, Kyle said firmly, pulling me into his arms. Justice, not revenge. Remember? She committed crimes. You punished appropriately. I clung to him, shaking. I could have died, I whispered. If the moon goddess hadn't intervened, if she hadn't turned that drowning into a transformation, I would have died because Vivian poisoned me as a child. But you didn't die, Kale said. You survived, you transformed, and now you're strong enough to make sure no other child suffers what you did. He was right. But gods, it hurt. Chapter 9. The Gathering Storm. Word of what I'd done to Vivian spread quickly through the wolf world. Some packs praised me, said it was justice well served. Others called me a tyrant, said I was too quick to strip wolves of their gifts, and a few, a dangerous few, started plotting. There's going to be a challenge, Kyle told me one morning, 3 weeks after the Vivian incident. Multiple alphas are gathering. They're calling it the Alpha Summit, but really it's a trial. They're going to question your authority. Let them question, I said. I have the moon goddess's backing. Maya, this is serious, Kale insisted. If enough alphas unite against you, if they decide you're a threat to pack autonomy, they could try to kill you, all of them at once. How many alphas? I asked. 20, he said grimly. From 20 different packs, all the major territories. They're demanding. You appear before them and prove your divine authority is real, and not just powerful magic you stole somehow. I laughed bitterly. And if I refuse to appear? They'll declare you rogue, Kyle said. Give every pack permission to hunt you. You'd be constantly fighting assassination attempts. So it was a trap. Either walk into a gathering of 20 hostile alphas or become the wolf world's most wanted. When and where? I asked. 2 weeks, Kyle said. Neutral ground in the Silverwood Forest. They've asked you to come alone. Absolutely not, Kyle said immediately. That's suicide. It's also smart, I countered. If I bring an army, I look like I'm trying to intimidate them. If I come alone, I show confidence in my divine authority. Or you die, Kale said flatly. I won't die, I said with more confidence than I felt. The moon goddess didn't save me from drowning just to let me get killed by proud alphas. Maya, I have to do this, I interrupted. If I don't face them. If I hide, they'll say I'm afraid. They'll say my power is fake, and every reform I've fought for will unravel. Kyle looked tortured. I hate this. I hate sending my mate into danger. You're not sending me, I said gently, cupping his face. I'm choosing to go. There's a difference. The 2 weeks before the summit passed in a blur. I trained harder than ever, pushing my divine power to its limits, learning to shield myself from multiple attackers, learning to command hundreds of wolves simultaneously. Damien tried to talk to me one last time before I left. Don't go, he said. Maya, please, they're going to kill you. They're going to try, I corrected. This is suicide, he insisted. Let me come with you, or at least let me send guards. No, I said firmly. This is my trial, Damien. I face it alone. He looked at me with such pain. I already failed you once. Let me help now, please. You can help, I said, by protecting Red Moon Pack while I'm gone, by making sure the odds for it reforms hold, by proving you've learned something from your mistakes. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement that he was trying. The night before I left, Kyle and I lay together in our chambers. If something happens to me, I started. Nothing will happen, he interrupted fiercely. If something happens, I continued, I need you to continue the work. Find another divine wolf if one emerges, or just keep fighting for the reforms. Don't let the pack slide back into cruelty. I won't have to, Kyle said, pulling me close, because you're coming back. You survived drowning, Maya. You survived assassination attempts. You'll survive this too. I wanted to believe him, but as I lay there, feeling his heartbeat against my back, our mate bond humming between us, I couldn't shake the feeling that the summit would change everything, one way or another. Chapter 10. The Summit. The Silverwood Forest was ancient, trees so tall they seemed to touch the sky, their trunks wider than houses. This was neutral ground, claimed by no pack, sacred to the moon goddess herself. 20 alphas stood in a circle, waiting for me. I recognized some. Alpha Marcus from Silverclaw, who'd offered alliance months ago. Alpha Reyna from Stormpack, known for her fairness. Alpha Thorn from Blood Moon, notorious for his cruelty. And in the center of the circle, a raised platform, where I was meant to stand trial. I walked forward, alone, my divine power radiating from every pore. The alphas watched me approach. Some looked curious, some looked hostile, a few looked almost afraid. Lady Maya, Alpha Marcus said, stepping forward. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? I asked dryly. There's always a choice, Rodney said. You could have refused, gone rogue, made us hunt you. That would have been inefficient, I said. Better to address your concerns directly. So here I am. Ask your questions. Alpha Thorn pushed forward. He was massive, easily 7 feet tall, built like a warrior, with scars crisscrossing his face. You claim to be the moon goddess's avatar, he said, his voice dripping with skepticism. But how do we know you're not just a wolf with powerful magic? Maybe you stole divine power somehow. Maybe you're lying to gain authority over packs. Why would I lie? I asked. Power, Thorn said simply. You're an Omega who was drowning 6 months ago. Now you command alphas. Sounds like someone drunk on newfound power. Murmurs of agreement rippled through several alphas. You want proof? I asked, letting divine power flare. Fine. I raised my hand and silver light blazed from my palm, bright enough to make them all squint. I can command any wolf, regardless of rank, I said. I focused on Thorn. Kneel. His knees buckled against his will. He fought it, muscles straining, face red with effort, but his wolf forced obedience to divine authority. After a moment, I released him. He stood, gasping and furious. That proves you're powerful, he snarled. Not that you're divine. Then how about this, I said. I let my wolf forward just slightly, enough that my eyes glowed silver and divine marks appeared on my skin, crescent moons, visible proof of the goddess's touch. Divine wolves are marked, always have been. Your histories should tell you that. Alpha Reyna leaned forward, studying the marks. The old texts do describe markings like that, she admitted. But again, Thorn pressed, marks can be faked, tattoos, magic. He wasn't going to be convinced. Neither were several others. I could see it in their eyes. They decided I was a threat before I even arrived. What do you want? I asked, tired of the games. What would convince you? A trial by combat, Thorn said immediately. If you're truly the moon goddess's chosen, fight me. Prove your divine power can overcome my alpha strength. That's not a fair test, Alpha Marcus protested. She's been a divine wolf for 6 months. You've been an alpha for 20 years. The experience gap. If she's truly divine, experience won't matter, Thorn interrupted. The goddess's power should be absolute. So, divine wolf, do you accept? Or are you a coward like your old mate? The insult about Damien landed, but I ignored it. I accept, I said. But let's be clear. This isn't about me proving myself to you. This is about you being too proud to accept that power structures are changing, that Omegas can be chosen, that the goddess values compassion over cruelty. Save the speech, Thorn said, already shifting. His wolf was enormous, black as night, easily twice the size of a normal alpha wolf. Scars covered his pelt. This was a wolf who'd seen countless battles and won them all. I shifted too. My divine wolf emerged, white and silver and glowing with moonlight. I was big, but Thorn was bigger. The fight began. Thorn lunged immediately, using his size advantage. His jaws snapped inches from my throat. I dodged, but barely. We circled each other. Growling. He lunged again, faster this time. His claws raked my side, drawing blood. Pain lanced through me, but divine power healed the wound almost instantly. Thorn's eyes widened as he saw the healing. "Interesting," he growled, "but let's see how you handle this." He attacked with brutal efficiency. Years of experience showed in every move. He knew exactly where to strike, how to use his weight, how to exploit openings. I fought back, but I was losing ground, and then I realized I was fighting like an ordinary wolf, using teeth and claws and physical strength, but I wasn't ordinary. I was divine. Divine power surged through me. Instead of dodging Thorn's next attack, I met it head-on. When his jaws closed on my neck, I used divine power to throw him off, not with strength, but with sheer energy. He flew backward, crashing into a tree. Before he could recover, I pinned him, my jaws around his throat, divine power crackling like lightning. "Yield," I said through our wolf connection. Thorn struggled, but divine authority was absolute. His own wolf recognized my power as greater than his alpha dominance. "I yield," he finally growled. I released him and shifted back to human form. Several female wolves quickly brought me a robe. Thorn shifted back too, looking stunned. "That power," he said, "it's real. Gods help us. It's actually real." "Yes," I said, "it is. The moon goddess has returned her divine wolves to the world, and I'm here to reform pack structures that have become corrupt, to protect the vulnerable, to ensure strength is used for protection, not oppression." I addressed all 20 alphas. "I'm not here to conquer you. I'm not trying to become some supreme alpha over all packs. I'm here to be what divine wolves were always meant to be, a balance, a check against alpha power when it becomes tyrannical." "And if we refuse to accept your authority?" Alpha Thorn asked, but there was less hostility in his voice now. "Then you'll face divine judgment," I said simply. "I'll remove abusive alphas, strip those who use their power cruelly, protect pack members who are being exploited, but alphas who treat their packs fairly, who protect the vulnerable, who lead with wisdom instead of fear. I'll never interfere with them." Alpha Reyna stepped forward. "I've heard about your reforms, protecting Omegas, preventing unjust exiles, requiring fair trials. Stormpack accepts your authority, Lady Maya. We want to be part of this change." One by one, other alphas stepped forward. 12 of the 20 offered alliance, but 8 remained hostile. "We don't accept," Alpha Darius from Shadowpack said coldly. "You've proven you're powerful. Fine. But that doesn't give you the right to interfere with pack sovereignty. Each alpha rules their own territory. That's how it's always been." "And how's that working out?" I asked. "How many innocent wolves have died because there was no check on alpha power? How many Omegas have been abused? How many children punished for things beyond their control?" "Pack business is pack business," Darius said. "Until it becomes divine business," I countered. "When you received the gift of shifting from the moon goddess, you accepted responsibility. She gave you power to protect, not to harm. If you've forgotten that, I'm here to remind you." "Then we're at an impasse," Darius said, "because Shadowpack will never accept your interference." The other 7 hostile alphas nodded agreement. "Then we're enemies," I said regretfully. "I don't want war. But if you force my hand, if you continue to abuse your pack members, I will intervene, and you won't like how that ends." "Is that a threat?" Darius growled. "It's a promise," I said. "Reform willingly or be reformed by force. Your choice." The summit ended with the wolf world split. 12 packs allied with me, 8 sworn to resist, and as I walked away from the Silverwood Forest, I knew the real battle was just beginning. Chapter 11. War. The first attack came 2 weeks later. Shadowpack struck one of my allied packs, Silverclaw, in the middle of the night. They killed 12 wolves and kidnapped 5 Omegas, claiming they were rescuing them from my tyrannical reforms. "It's bait," Kale said when we got the news. They're trying to provoke you into attacking Shadowpack, into proving you're the tyrant they claim you are. So what do? I asked. Let them kidnap Omegas? Let them murder allies? No, Kyle said. But you have to be smart about this. Surgical strikes, not full-scale war. Rescue the kidnapped wolves. Defend your allies. But don't invade their territory or execute their leaders without clear justification. For the next 3 months, it was a careful dance. Shadowpack and their allies would attack. I would respond with precise, measured force. I'd rescue kidnapped wolves, defend borders, protect allies. But I never invaded, never struck first, never gave them the propaganda victory they wanted. It was exhausting. And then Alpha Darius made a mistake. He kidnapped an Omega from Red Moon Pack, a young girl, only 16, named Sarah. He took her across the border into Shadowpack territory and publicly declared she was being saved from my influence. Sarah's mother begged me to save her daughter. I'll get her back, I promised. I assembled a rescue team. 20 wolves, Kyle, Damien, and 18 others I trusted completely. We crossed into Shadowpack territory under cover of darkness. Shadowpack was ready. They'd been waiting for me to make a move like this. We walked into an ambush. 50 Shadowpack warriors surrounded us within minutes of crossing the border. "Divine Wolf!" Alpha Darius called from the trees. "How nice of you to trespass. That gives me full legal right to eliminate you as a threat." "I'm here for Sarah," I called back. "Return her and I leave peacefully." "She doesn't want to return," Darius said. "She's chosen to stay here, where wolves are, free from your tyranny." "Let me hear her say that," I demanded. They brought Sarah forward. The girl was terrified, bruises on her arms where someone had grabbed her too hard. "Tell the Divine Wolf you're staying willingly," Darius said, his voice carrying a clear threat. Sarah looked at me with desperate eyes. Then she looked at Darius, at the warriors surrounding us, at the impossible situation. "I'm staying," she said, but her voice shook. "She's lying," I said. "I can sense it. You're holding her prisoner." "Prove it," Darius challenged. "Sarah," I said gently, "it's okay. You can tell the truth. I'll protect you." The girl hesitated. Then, "He said if I don't stay, he'll kill my mother. Please, Lady Maya, just go. I'll be fine." Rage exploded in my chest. "You threatened her mother," I said to Darius, divine power crackling. "You kidnapped a child and threatened to murder her family if she didn't cooperate." "Pack discipline," Darius said with a shrug. "Not your business." "Wrong answer," I said. Divine power exploded from me in a wave. Every Shadowpack wolf in the clearing dropped to their knees, forced to submit. I walked through them toward Darius, who was also kneeling, struggling against divine authority. "You've made a critical mistake," I said, stopping in front of him. "You didn't just threaten Sarah. You didn't just kidnap her. You used her as bait to ambush me. That's not pack discipline. That's an act of war." I placed my hand on his chest. "For the crimes of kidnapping, threatening innocents, and attempting to murder the moon goddess's avatar, I strip you of your position as Alpha." Darius screamed as his alpha power was ripped away. "Beta Marcus of Shadowpack," I called out. A younger wolf, maybe 25, stumbled forward, forced by divine command. "Do you accept responsibility for Shadowpack? Will you follow reformed pack laws and protect your members, especially the vulnerable?" Yes, Marcus gasped. "Yes, I accept." "Then, you're Alpha now," I said, releasing him. "Darius is exiled. If he remains on Packlands after sunset, he's to be arrested." I turned to the assembled Shadowpack wolves. "This is your chance. Choose reform, or choose continued resistance. But know that if you choose resistance, I will dismantle your pack entirely. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather work with you, but I won't tolerate child kidnapping and murder threats." The new Alpha Marcus nodded quickly. "Shadowpack chooses reform. We'll follow the new laws." "Good," I said. Then I looked at Sarah. "You're safe now. Come on, we're going home." The girl ran to me, crying, and I held her while my rescue team secured the area. But as we prepared to leave, Kyle touched my arm. "Maya, look." I turned and saw wolves emerging from the forest, hundreds of them, from all 8 of the resistant packs. This was the real trap, I realized. They used Sarah to get me here, and now they're all coming. 8 alphas stepped forward, including Former Alpha Cornelius, who'd apparently found allies in exile. "Divine Wolf," Cornelius said, smiling cruelly. "You've played right into our hands. You're deep in enemy territory surrounded by 8 packs. Even divine power has limits. You can't command all of us at once." He was right. I could command maybe 300 wolves before exhausting myself. There were at least 600 here. "So, here's what's going to happen," Cornelius continued. "You're going to die. We'll say you went rogue, attacked Shadowpack without provocation, and without your influence the reform movement will collapse. Pack structure will return to normal." I looked at Kale, at Damien, at the 18 warriors who'd come to help me. "Get Sarah out of here," I said. "All of you, run." "Not a chance," Kyle said immediately. "We're not leaving you." "Kale, I can't protect you and fight them," I said desperately. "Please, take Sarah, get to safety. Let me handle this." "You'll die," Kyle said flatly. "Maybe," I admitted, "but at least Sarah and you will live." "No," Damien said, stepping forward. "For once in my cowardly life, I'm going to do the right thing." He shifted, placing himself between me and the approaching army. "Red Moon Pack stands with the Divine Wolf," he howled. One by one, my 20 wolves shifted, forming a protective circle around me. "We're not leaving," Kyle said, also shifting. "We live together or die together." Tears burned my eyes. "You idiots." "Yeah," Kale's voice echoed in my mind through our mate bond. "We are, but we're your idiots." The 8 packs attacked. What followed was chaos, fighting everywhere. My wolves, outnumbered 30 to 1, fought with desperate courage. I used every ounce of divine power I had, commanding, healing, shielding. I forced enemy wolves to stop mid-attack, healed wounds on my allies, created barriers of divine light, but it wasn't enough. I watched Damien go down under 5 wolves, watched 3 of my warriors fall, watched Kale take a devastating wound to his side. "No!" I screamed, and then something inside me broke, not broke, shattered. Every restraint I'd placed on my power, every limitation, every careful control. It all fell away. Divine power exploded from me in a wave unlike anything I'd ever produced. Silver light blazed so bright it turned night into day. Every wolf in the clearing, all 600 of them, collapsed. Not just to their knees, completely collapsed, unable to move, unable to resist, and I felt her, the moon goddess herself, standing beside me in spirit form. "That's enough, daughter," she said gently. "You've proven yourself." I looked around at the carnage, at my wounded allies, at the 600 enemy wolves frozen by divine power. "What do I do?" I asked, exhausted and breaking. "I can't kill them all, but if I let them go, they'll just attack again." "No," the goddess said, "they won't, because you're going to show them mercy, and that mercy will break their resistance more effectively than any punishment could." She touched my shoulder, and power flowed into me, not my power, hers directly. "Heal them," she said, "all of them, friend and enemy alike." So I did. Divine light spread across the clearing, touching every wounded wolf. Damien's injuries healed. Kyle's side closed. The 3 warriors I'd thought were dead gasped back to life, and the enemy wolves felt it too. Every wound, every injury, healed by the same divine wolf they'd tried to kill. When I finally released them, they all stood in shocked silence. "I could have killed you," I said, my voice carrying across the clearing. "All of you. In that moment when I stopped holding back, I could have simply ended you, taken your wolves, struck you dead. The moon goddess's power is absolute." I let that sink in. "But I didn't," I continued, "because that's not what divine authority is for. It's not about domination. It's about protection. It's about showing that mercy is stronger than cruelty. That compassion is more powerful than fear." I looked at the 8 former alphas. "You've lost. All of you. Your pack saw me heal enemies. They felt divine mercy even after you tried to kill me. Do you really think they'll follow you into more attacks after this?" Alpha Cornelius looked around and saw it in his wolves' faces. Awe, respect, shame at attacking someone who'd just saved their lives. "It's over," I said. "The resistance is over. Reform has won, not because I forced it, but because I proved that the new way is better than the old." One by one, the 8 packs submitted, not through force, through choice. And when the sun rose the next morning, 18 packs were allied with me. Only 2 holdouts remained. Chapter 12. The Omega Who Became Queen. 6 more months passed. The 2 remaining resistant packs, Bloodfang and Darkwater, finally submitted after seeing every other pack embrace reform. The wolf world had changed. Omegas were protected. Unfair exiles had ended. Alphas ruled, but with wisdom and restraint, knowing divine authority was watching. And I was exhausted. "You need a break," Kale said one morning. We were in our chambers at Red Moon Pack, which had become our home base. "I need to check on Storm Pack," I said, looking at my schedule. "They're having issues with—" "They can handle it," Kyle interrupted. "Maya, you've been working non-stop for a year. You've reformed 20 packs. You've survived multiple assassination attempts. You've fought a war. You need rest." "The work isn't done," I protested. "The work is never done," he countered. "But if you burn yourself out, who protects the vulnerable then?" He had a point. That afternoon, we took a walk to the Cursed Lake, now renamed the Blessed Lake, site of my death and rebirth. "A year ago," I said, standing at the water's edge, "they threw me in here to die." "And you rose as something they couldn't imagine," Kyle said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Sometimes I still can't believe it," I admitted, "that I have this power, this responsibility." "You carry it well," he said. "Do I?" I asked. "I've made mistakes, Kyle. I was too harsh sometimes, too lenient others. I'm learning as I go." "That's what makes you good at this," he said. "You know you don't have all the answers. Tyrants think they do. Leaders know they're learning." I leaned back against him, feeling peace for the first time in months. I said slowly, "I want to have children. Eventually." "Is that crazy, given how dangerous my life is?" "It's not crazy," Kale said. "It's hopeful. And the world needs hope." A throat cleared behind us. We turned to find Damien standing at the tree line, looking uncomfortable. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said, "but there's someone here to see you, Lady Maya. Your mother." I hadn't seen her in months. I'd been so busy with reform work that I'd neglected personal relationships. "Send her to my chambers," I said. "I'll be right." "There," Damien nodded and left. But before he was out of earshot, I called out, "Damien!" He stopped, turning back. "You did good," I said, "during the battle. You stayed when you could have run. You fought when it would have been easier to hide. You're finally becoming the beta you should have been." His face showed naked relief. "Thank you, Lady Maya. That means everything." He left, and I felt like maybe, finally, that wound had healed. My mother was waiting in my chambers, pacing nervously. "Mom," I said, and she spun around. "Maya," she ran to me, pulling me into a fierce hug. "Oh, sweetheart, I've missed you so much." "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have visited more. You've been changing the world," she said, pulling back to look at me. "I understand. But baby, I needed to see you, to make sure you're okay." "I'm okay," I assured her. "Better than okay. I'm powerful," she finished. "I know, everyone knows. My daughter, the divine wolf." She touched my face gently. "I'm so proud of you. But I'm also terrified every day that someone will kill you." "They've tried," I admitted. "Many times, but the moon goddess protects me." "She better," my mother said fiercely. "Because if anything happens to you, I'm going to have words with her." I laughed. "Don't threaten the goddess, Mom." "I'm serious," she said. "You're my baby. I don't care if she chose you. You're mine first." We spent the afternoon together, just talking. About her life, my work, everything. It was normal, in a way my life rarely was anymore. As she was leaving, she paused at the door. "Maya, there's something I need to tell you. About your father." My heart clenched. "What about him?" "He knew," she said quietly. "About your divine blood. He could sense it even when you were tiny. He told me once that you were destined for greatness, that the moon goddess had plans for you." Tears burned my eyes. "He knew?" "He knew," she confirmed, "and he was so proud, even though he knew it meant you'd face tremendous challenges. He believed you were strong enough." "I wish he was here to see this," I whispered. "He is," my mother said, "in spirit, watching over you, proud of everything you've become." After she left, I stood at the window, looking out at red moon-packed territory. A year ago, I'd been drowning, dead, broken. Now I was alive, powerful, whole. But more than that, I was useful. I was protecting others, making sure no one else had to suffer what I'd suffered. "Thank you," I whispered to the moon goddess, "for choosing me, for believing I was strong enough. You were always strong enough," her voice echoed in my mind. "You just needed to believe it yourself." That night, Kyle and I lay together, talking about the future. "What do you want?" he asked. "After all this reform work is done, after you've changed the wolf world, what do you want for yourself?" I thought about it. "Peace," I said finally. "A family, maybe to train other divine wolves if more. Emerge, to teach them to use power wisely." "Sounds perfect," Kyle said, kissing my forehead. And as I drifted off to sleep, wrapped in my mate's arms, safe and loved and powerful, I thought about the girl I'd been, the Omega they'd tried to drown. She'd died in that lake, and risen as something they could never have imagined. The moon goddess's weapon, the divine wolf, the one who changed everything. Epilogue. 5 years later, I stood on the balcony of what everyone now called the Divine Hall, a neutral territory I'd established for pack councils and dispute resolution. Below, hundreds of wolves gathered, representatives from 30 packs now. The reform movement had spread beyond even my initial territories. And today was special. Today we were celebrating the first class of Luna-trained Omegas, young wolves who'd been taught that Omega wasn't a weakness, it was a strength, that caring for others, empathy, compassion, these were powers too. 50 young wolves stood in ceremonial robes, ready to take positions of leadership in their packs. 5 years ago, I said, my voice magically amplified, I was drowning in the cursed lake, sentenced to death for being defective, for not shifting on schedule, for being weak. I paused, letting them see me, powerful, confident, alive. But I wasn't defective, I wasn't weak, I was divine, and the moon goddess used what they meant to destroy me, to transform me into exactly what the wolf world needed. I looked at the 50 young Omegas. All of you have been told at some point that you're less than, that strength means dominating others, that power is about fear. But you've learned differently. You've learned that true strength is protecting the vulnerable, that real power is using your gifts to help others, that leadership is service, not domination. I smiled. Welcome to the new wolf world, the one we've built together, the one where every wolf, regardless of rank, has value and purpose. Cheers erupted. After the ceremony, I found Kale waiting for me. He had our 3-year-old daughter, Luna, perched on his shoulders. "Mama," Luna called, reaching for me. I took her, holding her close. She'd been born 2 years ago, right in the middle of a pack council meeting. Very dramatic timing. And she'd been born with divine marks, faint crescents on her shoulders that glowed slightly in moonlight, another divine wolf, the first of a new generation. "How's my girl?" I asked, kissing her dark hair. "I shifted today," Luna said excitedly. "I turned into a puppy." "Did you?" I asked, looking at Kyle for confirmation. He nodded, grinning. "For about 3 seconds. Then she got excited and shifted back. But yes, at 3 years old, she shifted. Divine blood runs strong." I held my daughter close, thinking about everything she'd never have to face. No one would call her defective. No one would try to drown her. No one would sentence her to death for being different, because I'd changed the world, not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Enough that the girl I used to be, the Omega who couldn't shift, who was called worthless, who was thrown into a lake to die, she would be proud. That girl had died. But from her death, something beautiful had been born. Divine justice, real change, and a world where being different wasn't a death sentence, it was a gift. I looked up at the moon, feeling the goddess's presence. "We did it," I whispered. "We actually changed things." "Yes, daughter," her voice echoed warmly. "You did, and you're only getting started." I smiled, because she was right. The work would continue, new challenges would come. But I was ready. The Omega they tried to drown had become the divine wolf who saved them all. And that was just the beginning. The end.